Here's a fun pair of brightly colored maroon pants, and this is our challenge. The challenge is that we need to take the waist in, and how we're going to do that is through the back seam here. Now, the special part of the challenge is we don't need to take in the entire back seam, just part way, just beyond the belt loop. First, let's get that belt loop off. So take your ripper and get it off however it is that you need to get it off. Almost released that belt loop. There she goes. Next, we'll need to figure out how we're going to reduce this waistband. We're going to have to make a seam here. It won't matter because it will be nicely covered up by the belt loop by the time we're finished. By the way, you're going to want to remove the tags in back too, because that's where the seam is going to occur, front and back. Sometimes the hardest part of the whole job is going to be getting the brand and care tags off. They're sewn on so tightly. And I'm not going to opt to put it back on later, so I'm mentioning it now in case you want to. You do it later, when you're finished. I'll try to remember to mention the best time to do it. Take your ruler, line it up with the seam, extend it beyond the waistband, and draw a chalk line. That's going to be your new seam in the waistband. Transfer that chalk mark to the other side. Stick a pin along the line, turn it over, and mark along the way. Release that waistband a good ways from either side of your chalk mark. Oh, a good couple inches. That seems kind of far, but you'll be glad when you go to put the waistband on later that you had enough room to move. Okay, see how we've got the waistband nicely detached. This will allow for the amount that we need to take it in and then some, so that we have room to maneuver in here. Next thing to do is cut right along those chalk lines. Free up the seam that we're going to work with from any stitching, especially up here. Like so. Next, we'll actually take this seam in. Now turn the pants inside out with one leg inside the other, so that it will be easy to access this seam. Here's what I've chalk marked, very little going into the seam part of the pants. It's the waistband that's going to be taken in rather majorly. So I determined at her fitting that she needed a nice slant from the top of the waistband to the bottom of this rather wide waistband. And then here's where it will meet up at the pants. Okay?